The other day I was on YouTube and the autoplay started a video that at first I thought was a Breath of the Wild fan mod where they gave Link a Hercules outfit. Turns out it was the official Nintendo gameplay of Tears of the Kingdom. It was Eiji Aonuma playing the game to show some new features like he does with all the games. And once I determined that yes, this is a new video and not a 10-year-old one of him playing Breath of the Wild, I sat and watched. It was pretty interesting. They've added new places to go, new gameplay mechanics, and new enemies. There were clear ties between these new things and the Zonai mystery of the last game. There were unique places to go. There were new enemies. There were new gameplay mechanics. Okay, I'm running out of things to say. I love Zelda and the franchise, whether it's out of the cool concepts that the series tends to have or just pure nostalgia. I'm giving that disclaimer so that when I talk my shit, people won't claim that I just dislike the franchise as a whole, because that's not the case. But this, so far, is just not impressive. Don't get me wrong, it looks fun to play, and I'll probably slap $70 on the counter and walk out of Target with a hard copy in my hand and a big shit-eating grin on my face, just like everybody else who still buys physical media. But when I watch this, I don't feel like I'm looking at a new top-tier game and new entry in the franchise with the highest price tag ever. In sneak peeks, previews, and all that good stuff, you tend to see teasers of different parts and features of a game, building hype and getting fans excited to be able to dive into it and see what it's all about. Here's what I see in every preview and sneak peek of Tears of the Kingdom. Running around Breath of the Wild map. Running around Breath of the Wild map but floating in the sky. Using Breath of the Wild mechanics but with slight changes. Fighting Breath of the Wild enemies but with slight changes. Where is the new game? Well, let's go through this footage and search for it, I guess. I don't always notice the fine details in these videos, but lucky for me, all the Zelda YouTubers have been falling over each other to break down this gameplay video, which may be a good thing for them since a handful of them seem to really be getting desperate looking for content to talk about while they wait for the game to come out. We start out in the Breath of the Wild map, coming up to this new interesting, oh wait, that's just a stable. A big Zelda YouTuber helped me better analyze what's going on at this stable and who was around it and, oh wait, it's just normal stable NPCs. He made a joke about being able to pet the dog in this game, which I know was a joke, but I wouldn't have been surprised if that was actually featured in this Nintendo gameplay. I can see it now. Using the time reversal arm mechanic, I forgot what it's called, we ride up a falling rock back into the sky to the floating islands, similar to how people would stasis launch themselves across the map with rocks in Breath of the Wild. Now we're getting into the part of the video that's supposed to be the meat and potatoes. We're seeing how the new game features work in actual gameplay, and to be honest, it's kind of the same shit. Attach frozen chew jelly to an arrow to freeze enemies. It's an ice arrow. Fuse a rock to a stick. It's a makeshift hammer. And this thing, which is like a pitchfork attached to a boko spear of some sort, which is cool for the distance it creates, but looks kind of silly. I feel like we could have just included new unique weapons in general for this feature instead of trying to recreate the wheel. This is like the endgame equivalent of build your own cardboard controller. Having pitchforks and mops to fight with in Breath of the Wild was a funny gag, but I don't think anybody actually preferred using those in any serious capacity. But in all seriousness, this is clearly early game, and I will say this feature probably gets a lot better further down the line when you actually do find better weapons and items. And on the grand scale, I think the fusion mechanic is a really interesting addition with a ton of unique potential. Creating a honing arrow out of an eyeball might be something that will go a long way in this game. Nintendo has a legacy for pushing the boundaries with creativity, and I'm glad to see we're still including new ideas into this series instead of just cloning all the old ones. The problem I have with it, though, is that there's not enough of the old at all. I had hopes that this game would add more to it with new ideas as well as add more by adding a lot of the old Zelda concepts that worked well. I'm not saying this game doesn't have those things, but if it did, we would have seen some inkling of it at this point. Not just Breath of the Wild Link running around in Breath of the Wild world with a few new spots and doing Breath of the Wild things. We're off the Guardians now, it appears, and are on to new robots. I kind of like them. They remind me of those freaky eyeball motherfuckers from previous games. Can't say I'm mad about this at all, but it is funny to see this super highly advanced, mysterious, high-tech robot pop out of the bushes to start beating you with a tree branch. The weapon's durability seems to be in full effect still, as this tree branch breaks after like 3 hits. But maybe with the fusion we'll be able to at least make cool weapons last longer, I hope. Among other new mechanics, we have what I heard was called Ultra Hand, which you can use to build a fan boat out of all the random fans laying everywhere. The last of the new abilities shown is the ability to jump through ceilings and come out on top. There it is, you've seen it. I love to be optimistic, but this shit just isn't getting me hype.
This is whack! I can't get jiggy with this shit!
I feel like I'm just looking at what I've already seen and done. People in the comments raving about how they got goosebumps watching this and are in tears. I want to know, what are you seeing that's making you shed a single tear? Link climbing another wall? Link traversing another empty field? Link riding another raft? Another Korok? Where are the people? God, I hope this has a good story with some good cutscenes, because so far, the world isn't doing it for me, and neither are the new mechanics. And if Ganon is the main enemy again, I'm gonna flip my shit. How many times can we seal this asshole away once and for all? Don't get me wrong, there may be a lot added to this world and its story, but if there is, like, could they at least have done gameplay inside of a dungeon or something? We know there's floating islands, and a showcase of the new abilities isn't bad, but it's mostly just showcasing what we've already kind of done before, just with slight adjustments. Show me some current game relevancy of this fan boat simulator construction tool. Show me somewhere this climb through roof-a-majig really shines versus using it to get on top of another big rock, because I've already done that in Breath of the Wild. I'm hoping there will be a lot of rebuilding Hyrule, as Terrytown was one of the most fun quests in Breath of the Wild, but I still want to see some towns and shit actually existing once I fire up the game. One of the best ways to make this game very different from Breath of the Wild while using the same world would be to have some actual towns and forts or whatever built up similar to Age of Calamity. On top of that, utilizing the underground and underwater areas to add interesting places, which I do think underground will be a thing, but I'm worried instead of going into the ground and structures and finding interesting and unique dungeons, we'll just find copy and paste caves so we can jump through the ceiling. Unfortunately, underwater doesn't appear to be a thing since I haven't seen it showcased anywhere. When Nintendo is trying to sell a new game, the ads will show a mix of all the different features as well as some new areas without giving too much away. And one thing I see consistent is in the trailers and gameplay footage of this, you see all of 2 things over and over: the surface world of Breath of the Wild with a few changes, and the Sky Islands. Based on that, I'm honestly not convinced a ton has been done. Even if COVID-19 slowed things down, this is a 4-year development timeline. We've already seen Nintendo create greatness in just 1 year, and I'm not expecting so much to be done when working with such a huge game with so many fine details. But let's not forget also that Majora's Mask created a whole new world. Tears of the Kingdom is using the same world. I'm not sure if Nintendo just doesn't feel like they have to do as much because the fans will love it anyway, or if they actually think their efforts in games are great because everyone's so quick to slop their top over it. I was reading an article on a site where writers don't even proofread their work, and a lot of the statements being made basically show just that. They made statements like, "We weren't the least bit disappointed. If you like Breath of the Wild, you'll adore Tears of the Kingdom. Why weren't you the least bit disappointed? Because you went into the video already slack-jawed, ready to be amazed by anything?
It might come in handy later."
Like when people go to a comedy show and immediately start laughing at the lamest jokes simply because of who's making those jokes. They say, "It defies in-game physics, but we're not the ones to argue against it." Why not? Fans are exactly the ones to point out if something is dumb. It's certainly expanded to an unprecedented extent. You can attach a rock to a stick to make a hammer. Truly genius, and quite surprising considering that everything we saw about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom didn't differentiate the game from Breath of the Wild all that much. It's hardly expanded. Putting a rock on a stick isn't genius, and this game isn't differentiated from Breath of the Wild all that much at this point. With all the hype Breath of the Wild received, the bar is set high for this game, but I think it's low at the same time because this is how fans tend to think. Be mad at me, but for 70 smackaroos, I'd kind of like Nintendo to go out of their way to give me something new, not add new skin to the same enemies, make small changes to existing features, and add more landmass that looks just like existing landmass. I really hope I'm wrong about a lot of this stuff and the game is incredible, and I'm sure it will be a decent game. But as I said, if there's a lot to see, they've been hiding it for sure. What's new on the surface? Because I've only seen fields. What's going on with the floating islands? Because right now I see normal empty land just like the surface, but floating in the air. And what the hell is that thing? Show me a sneak peek of that. Or is it kept in the distance because it's another thing that turns out uneventful once you get to it? Just know I will surely play the game at some point, but no, I won't be pre ordering it, not even for the spoon and fork bonus. But at this point, I haven't seen anything really showing me that this shit deserves a pre order. It would have to really suck for me to not get it at all, and I don't think that'll be the case. I'm sure it would be good, but I don't think it'll be nearly as great as everybody's acting like it will be. I can see the 9.8 and 9.9 reviews coming in already, and everybody's already acting like this new mechanic is the greatest thing since sliced bread when they haven't even tried it themselves yet. At the end of the day, though, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And for everybody crying tears of joy over this, please go eat shit.